Good morning from Mission Control Center in Houston, Texas, in the International Space Station Flight Control Room, where teams on the ground are looking live, as you are now, on NASA Plus, as two NASA astronauts prepare to venture outside the International Space Station and begin a spacewalk to support International Space Station assembly, maintenance, and upgrades. Today's U.S. spacewalk is spacewalk number 91 on the docket, and that includes NASA astronaut and flight engineer Nick Hague, who you see in front of you with the red stripes on the pants, and commander of Expedition 72, the current expedition aboard the International Space Station, and Suni Williams. Nick Hague, dubbed EVA throughout today's broadcast. And again, he will be wearing those red stripes, as you see in that bottom left-hand corner to indicate. And for Suni Williams, the commander of Expedition 72, she will be wearing be dubbed EV2. The two astronauts are currently halfway through their pre-breathing techniques in preparation for today's spacewalk to prepare themselves and avoid decompression sickness by removing nitrogen from the bloodstream, and that avoids what they would call the bends or decompression sickness as they leave the high pressure system of the International Space Station into the vacuum of space. And now you can see Don Pettit, NASA astronaut, joining him for some final photos as the two crew members, Nick Hague on the right, Suni Williams on the left. They're still hooked up and again in that pre-breathe that they have been undergoing for about an hour now and still have a little ways to go before the go for decompression. They are currently in the Quest airlock of the International Space Station and the equipment lock where the two astronauts suited up some couple hours ago, went through leak checks, everything went A-OK. And now in those final few moments of preparations, pictures with their crewmates and expedition crew, and finishing up their pre-breathe before eventually venturing into the vacuum of space. Working with NASA astronaut Nick Hague and Suni Williams in preparation for today, their spacewalk support. They were assisted into their suits some time ago by Butch Wilmore for spacewalk support, as well as Don Pettit, who you saw in that field of view just a few moments ago, snapping a couple of extra photos, and they will be inside the space station monitoring from that vantage point, as well as teams here on the ground. And taking a look at the statistics going into today's spacewalk for Nick Hague, this will be his fourth spacewalk. Previously conducted his 3 for a total of 19 hours and 56 minutes. And for commander of Expedition 72, Suni Williams, this will be her 8th, as her previous 7 would have her go at 50 hours and 40 minutes. This is the 273rd spacewalk in support of International Space Station assembly, maintenance, and upgrades, and the first spacewalk of 2025, and the second for Expedition 72. After the pre-breathe, the two astronauts will be removed from their attachments on the walls there of the equipment lock inside the Quest airlock of the space station. Their safer units, or the simplified aid for EVA rescue needed in case of emergencies, will then be attached, and that's where Butch Wilmore and Don Pettit will come in and help them assist before eventually moving into the crew lock, which you see back behind you, where the two astronauts will venture in. The hatch will close, and then the decompression of that hatch to meet up with the pressure of the vacuum of space will then equalize before the crew can then egress and begin their day's journey. For the team here on the ground inside Mission Control Houston and the International Space Station Flight Control Room, they are led today by Flight Director Nicole McElroy, as the team on the ground currently undergoing a handover period, as Nicole will be the Spacewalk Flight Director for today's EVA. Her and her Vista flight team will also be joined alongside NASA astronaut Jessica Whitner, who will be the spacewalk communicator, and also joined alongside by Aki Hoshide for Capcom and all other communications inside the International Space Station. And this EVA team has been active this morning, again experiencing the handover period in which Nicole McElroy and her Vista flight team will take over and prepare the crew for the rest of their journey as their pre-breathe Continuing to roll on along for a little over an hour now. And during this pre-breathe technique, you'll see the astronauts moving around, moving their arms. They were going through regimented exercise routines earlier, just lifting their legs, and to accelerate the body's absorption of pure oxygen, and again, to get rid of and remove nitrogen from their system to avoid decompression sickness, similar to what divers go through when moving up from deep depths to the surface, where you move from a high pressure to a low pressure, similar to what's experienced here at the high pressure inside the International Space Station, and then eventually moving out to no pressure, the vacuum of space. For this U.S. EVA number 91, taking a look at the planned tasks that are on the docket for both Nick Hague and Suni Williams. The priority task that Nicole McElroy and team issued during a press briefing earlier in the week was to remove and replace the rate gyro assembly. That is number 2, and that is what measures the angular motion of the International Space Station about each of its 3 axes. There are 2 rate gyro assemblies on board, just inside the main truss figure, and that was last installed back in September of 2009 during the shuttle era aboard STS-128 and International Space Station Assembly Mission number 17. So again, most of these tasks for removal and replace are R&R, as you may hear throughout the broadcast today, and that is for that maintenance and upgrades. The second task that will be focused on will be to remove and replace the Harmony Zenith or space-facing planar reflector that is close to the port for visiting vehicles. And that planar reflector is a part of the docking procedures for visiting vehicles that come and go from the International Space Station. Currently, the Crew 9 SpaceX Dragon is attached to this location, and this is where they will be removing and replacing that reflector, which sends signals to and from visiting vehicles as they are on approach to the International Space Station. Also, during this time frame, we will see one of the astronauts install a Neutron, or install patches for the nicer payload, the Neutron Star Interior Composition Explorer patches, and that is an X-ray telescope that studies neutron stars, black holes, and other phenomena. This telescope has thermal shields over their detectors to prevent sunlight from interfering with the X-ray measurements. However, over time, they have been damaged, and that has allowed sunlight to leak into the instrument during daylight hours. So during this EVA, they will have installing wedge-shaped patches that you will see throughout, and we will update you throughout the course of the broadcast on that progress to help patch up those areas to remove unwanted sunlight from entering that experiment and that X-ray telescope, and to allow it to resume during daylight operations. And the final task for today's EVA is to prepare the alpha magnetic spectrometer patch panel for upgrades, and this will be a part of a sequence of tasks to upgrade that overall panel and overall experiment moving forward. And for them, that'll be a one step of many in the coming future, but that will be the final task that the 2 astronauts will focus in on. So again, if you are just joining us, good morning from Mission Control in Houston in the International Space Station Flight Control Room, as we are looking inside the equipment lock. And this is a live view of Mission Control Houston, and there you can see someone in the center of your screen in the black blazer, Nicole McElroy and her Vista flight team getting settled in for today's EVA activities. So with those 4 tasks on tap for Nick Hague and Suni Williams, we have ourselves an animation that would help illustrate better the actual step-by-step procedures and what it will look like throughout today's broadcast with an animation of today's EVA.
This is the planned tasks for the RGA and reflector EVA. EV1 exits the airlock first wearing red stripes, and EV2 exits second wearing white stripes. The first task in this EVA is to remove and replace RGA2 in the S0 truss location. EV1 will be working on the back side of the truss. They will carry the new RGA to the worksite, remove the bolts and connectors, and then pull the old RGA out. EV2 will be positioned inside the truss to assist with removing the electrical connections and the bolts. They will then put the new RGA in place. Once the RGA R&R is complete, EV2 will move to the Node 2 Zenith docking port to remove and replace the planar reflector. EV2 will remove 3 bolts in order to remove the planar reflector. They will then put the new one in its place and bolt it back down. Before leaving the worksite, EV2 will take photos of the new reflector and its surrounding area. Meanwhile, EV1 will be working on the nicer payload located on the S3 outboard truss. EV1 will be installing wedge-shaped patches from the caddy to cover the damaged areas of the light detectors. Once complete, they will then take photos to confirm the configuration is correct. EV1 will then move to the AMS worksite to move a C2V2 cable to allow access to the payload. Once both crew members meet up at the AMS worksite, EV1 will ingress the truss to access the AMS patch panel and then remove the cloth covering. EV1 will then do fit checks to determine what connectors are easily accessible for future upgrades. Once complete with their tasks, both crew members will then go back to the airlock and ingress, marking the end of the RGA and reflector EVA.
That is an inside look at some of the tasks that are upcoming for today's U.S. spacewalk number 91, featuring NASA astronaut and flight engineer Nick Hague and commander of Expedition 72, Suni Williams. As you are looking again live inside the equipment lock of the Quest airlock, that is Nick Hague across the field of view. You can see those red stripes that we'll be keeping an eye on from him throughout today's EVA. That's his indicator, those red stripes, Suni Williams. This is an above view. You'll see the top of her helmet in the bottom right-hand corner as NASA astronaut Don Pettit and Butch Wilmore are helping those two prepare. They are their IV support systems, their spacewalk support systems inside the International Space Station. We're about 30 minutes away for a go for depress as the two astronauts in their suits getting ready to finish up their pre-breathe as they continue to exercise and give movement to introduce more oxygen and pure oxygen into their systems to remove nitrogen and to avoid decompression and sickness. They're going over their final studies with Butch Wilmore in that shot before they will then be unhooked from their braces that are having them currently attached to the sidewalls there of the equipment lock, and they will have additional instrumentation placed on them, including the SAFER, the Simplified Aid for EVA Rescue, in case that would be necessary during today's spacewalk. And with that go for decompress in about 29 minutes, a little bit north of that from now, that'll put us right on schedule for what should hopefully be an egress around 7 a.m. Central Time, 8 a.m. Eastern Time. Today's spacewalk is scheduled to be around 6.5 hours as they continue to adjust and prepare for those 4 main tasks that we were talking about, and you saw the animation for as we look live inside of Mission Control in Houston. An ample crowd on hand during the handover period as Nicole McElroy and her Vista Flight team taking over for today's EVA. So far, everything nominal in preparation for today's EVA, the U.S. spacewalk number 91 and the 273rd spacewalk in support of space station assembly, maintenance, and upgrades. NASA astronaut Don Pettit working back behind the spacesuit of Nick Hague in this shot. And again, this is a live view inside the equipment lock of the Quest airlock of the International Space Station, as NASA astronauts and Commander of Expedition 72, Suni Williams, who is currently on the bottom of your screen. She's covered up by that back panel of her backpack of her spacesuit, being worked on by Butch Wilmore and Don Pettit at the moment, in which they will have their safer units attached, and those will be used in case of emergency, providing stability, thrust, and maneuverability should they become untethered from the International Space Station. And you just recently saw Don do that with Nick Hague just a few moments ago. And as it stands right now, the go for decompression as the two astronauts in the equipment lock will transfer over to the crew lock, which is right now framing the back of Butch Wilmore. They will transition into those configurations. The hatch will be closed, and the go for decompression of the crew lock will get underway. And that's where the pressure of the crew lock will be reduced slowly to then match the vacuum of space before Suni Williams and Nick Hague will be able to go outside and begin today's tasks.
Houston, Sept 16, 2-minute purge initiated 11:40, just right at the start of 11:48.
We copy, Butch.
Houston, we're up to step 22.
Copy and concur, Step 22.
And EV2 is at 3 on the TCV.
Copy 3 for EV2.
EV1's at 4.3, EV2's at 4.2, and we're up to step 22.2.
Houston copies.
Okay, so Houston, both suits are holding 0 Delta P. And we're back to step 17 of 1.225.
Copy all and concur, Step 17.
It looks like we're looked up to the point of taking EV1 out, putting the safer on, sticking him in the airlock.
We agree.
1 TCV going to 3.
Copy.
This is Mission Control Houston, where we are continuing to follow along the Coverage and preparation for U.S. EVA number 91, featuring NASA astronauts and Commander of Expedition 72, Suni Williams, and Nick Hague. We just completed a handover period here inside of Mission Control in the ISS Flight Control Room as Flight Director Nicole McElroy and her Vista flight team settled in for preparation. Now, as we look back on board and what's happening inside the International Space Station, we talked earlier in the broadcast about how support teams and Butch Wilmore in the Navy shirt on the left, and Don Pettit, the short-sleeved Navy shirt on the right-hand side, will be supporting both Suni Williams and Nick Hague throughout today's spacewalk as they attach what is known as the SAFER units right now. And this SAFER unit, or the Simplified Aid for EVA Response, is a safety mechanism should these astronauts ever be untethered from the International Space Station. They provide stability, thrust, and maneuverability to allow them to get back to a station. So that is what they are currently attaching to what looks to be Nick Hague's uniform, and we know that it'll be Nick Hague based on the red stripes that his suit will be wearing throughout today's spacewalk. And you can get a glimpse of those red stripes a little bit on the pants there towards the bottom of your screen. And Suni Williams will await her turn here in just a couple of moments. For Suni Williams, this is her 8th spacewalk, previously conducting 7 for a total of 50 hours and 40 minutes, in which her first of those 7 spacewalks that she has undergone, occurring nearly 18 years ago to the day, was a part of Expedition 14 back in January of 2007, in which she was out in the vacuum of space for almost 8 hours as she helped reconfigure and serve the Destiny module under on the International Space Station. And for Nick Hague, this will be his 4th spacewalk, in which he previously conducted 3, totaling 19 hours and 56 minutes. Their most recent spacewalk history for Suni Williams, she was last out in the vacuum of space back in November of 2012 as a part of Expedition 33. And for Nick Hague, it was August of 2019 as a part of Expedition 60. And you will hear communications. You heard earlier Butch Wilmore relaying down to the ground the steps and procedures that they are working through to prepare these 2 astronauts to enter the vacuum of space. They are still experiencing their pre-breathe portion, in which they are purging their bodies of nitrogen from their bloodstream. And in doing so, they are getting ready for the go for depress, in which they will move from the equipment lock, which they are currently in right now, to the crew lock, which is that illuminated back square, that framed portion of the Quest airlock that they will transition to. The hatch will be closed and the decompression will be given a go to match then the pressure of the vacuum of space and reduce before eventually beginning today's tasks. As the 2 continue preparations for today's spacewalk, the International Space Station traversing some 250 miles above the Pacific Ocean in orbital nighttime.
Yeah, Keystone One, just to let you know, there was something floating away from the airlock towards Node 1. Probably towards the aft side of Node 1.
This is Mission Control Houston as we continue to follow along the progress of U.S. EVA 91 and the preparations for NASA astronauts Suni Williams and Nick Hague with their support teams on board the International Space Station, and Butch Wilmore and Don Pettit currently working on attaching the safer unit and making sure everything is A-OK on the suit of astronaut Nick Hague, whose backside you are seeing towards your field of view, and Suni Williams giving him a nice pat on the arm as Hague, in those red stripes on his suit today, makes his way into the crew lock. On the ground to support for today's EVA, and there you see in the close field of view Nicole McElroy with the black sweater on, the flight director for today's EVA, Flight Director Elias Mirmo, in for support of McElroy through today's procedures. And just to McElroy's right, you see spacewalk communicator and NASA astronaut Jessica Whitner. She will be communicating and relaying information to both Suni Williams and Nick Hague as the EVA continues to press along, and also Capcom Aki Hoshide, who actually went on 3 different spacewalks with Suni Williams in his career. He will be joining as well. So that is Nicole McElroy and our Vista flight team, and support Elias Mirmo, who will also be the flight director for a week from now, US EVA number 92, that will feature NASA astronauts Suni Williams and Butch Wilmore. Also supporting today's EVA, the spacewalk lead officer, Farouk Sabur, here inside of Mission Control. He will also be relaying the information and leading today's EVA procedures, relaying information to the spacewalk communicator and Capcom, as well as any updates and information to the flight directing team as the EVA unfolds today. And again, today's EVA, once they egress or exit the Quest airlock and the crew lock, will be approximately scheduled for 6.5 hours, taking on 4 key tasks, including the remove and replace of the rate gyro assembly, the remove and replace in patches of the Neutron star interior composition explorer, or the NICER experiment, as well as the Harmony Zenith planar reflector, and then preparing the alpha magnetic spectrometer patch panel for future upgrades. So now you can see inside the equipment lock and looking into the crew lock that Nick Hague is in position with those red stripes on his pants, both Don Pettit on the right, Butch Wilmore on the left. They are attaching the safer units onto the backside of the spacesuit for Expedition 72 Commander Suni Williams. The pre-breathe has been underway for about an hour and a half now, but the go for decompress on the horizon, a little north of 11 minutes from this moment. And there you heard communication from the ground teams as they continue to cross off items on the checklists, as both astronaut Don Pettit and Butch Wilmore aboard the International Space Station continue to prepare the And there you can see Suni Williams beginning her journey into the crew lock with the assistance of NASA astronaut Butch Wilmore and Don Pettit. Nick Hague already in there to join as we are approaching about 8.5 minutes now. Go for depressurization of the crew lock inside the Quest airlock at the International Space Station.
Air Houston on 1 for EV1. We see the water temperature rising a little bit. Check for cooling, and if you are able, could you turn your TCV to 4 for a minute or two? And that is for EV1.
And there you just heard communication from Mission Control in the ISS International Space Station Flight Control Room, relaying up to the team aboard the International Space Station in preparation for today's EVA. They referenced EV1, that is Nick Hague. EV2 is Suni Williams, who is closest in the crew lock, that is in her suit and her helmet facing towards us. You can see the feet of Nick Hague up above, as those two have just recently been unhooked from their brackets inside the equipment lock portion of the Quest airlock and journeyed their way into the crew lock. We're about 6 minutes away for go for depressurization of the crew lock. They'll close the hatches. Butch Wilmore and Don Pettit assisting the two astronauts going out for the extravehicular activity today.
Thanks, Butch.
EV2 TCV going to 3.5.
Copy.
All right, Houston, we've verified that the HAPs are dry, visually checked dry. The sublimators have been visually checked dry on both EMUs. Door handles are down on the safers. We're going to get your safety tethers configured. Y'all set for that?
And Butch, we copy all. Thank you very much.
All tests and checkouts continuing to move along for both NASA astronaut Nick Hague and Suni Williams in preparation for today's US EVA number 91, the 273rd, in support of International Space Station assembly, maintenance, and upgrades, in which they will shortly be entering a go for the depressurization of the crew lock before opening up the hatch and venturing out into the vacuum of space, in which they will undergo a planned 4-task day including the removal and replacement of the rate gyro assembly that helps give orientation data on the International Space Station. Remove and replace the Harmony Zenith planar reflector. That is crucial for docking for visiting vehicles. Help make patches to the Neutron Star Interior Composition Explorer experiment, the X-ray telescope, also known as NICER, and prepare the alpha magnetic spectrometer patch panel for future upgrades.
Okay, Houston, we're up to step 69.
Copy, step 69, thanks.
Do you want us to continue? Houston, EV1 says he can go 1 notch colder on his TCV if you're not happy with his water temp.
Standby checking.
And Nick, it's currently at 5. 5.
And Butch, thanks for the report. We are happy with EV1's water temp. He can adjust as required.
And EV1 copies.
And Butch, you're go to close the hatch. Be advised, go for depress in less than 2 minutes.
We're going to close the hatch. Here we go.
And there you saw and heard the call-outs for the hatch.
Relaxing the hatch now.
Copy.
And you heard it right there from Spacewalk Lead Officer Farouk Sabor up to the NASA astronauts aboard the International Space Station to lock the hatch from the equipment lock into the crew lock. And about 20 seconds from now, instructions given to depress the crew lock and begin lowering the pressure to match that, and slowly in steps match that of the vacuum of space.
Hatch is actually not closed yet. What did you need? Did you need anything? Correct. No, you'll be doing that when you get to vacuum.
I'm just going to put my bag on the other side.
Okay.
Drives me a little crazy over here.
Yeah. Comfortable to do what you need to do,
Yeah.
and then when we have to open the hatch, we'll shift around a little bit.
Yep. I just want to get it out of my way over here.
Got it.
Thought I could just push it, but it keeps coming back as usual.
Yeah.
And Airlock Houston on 1, be advised, EV crew are both hot mic'd at this point.
Okay, copy that. Got your hot mic.
All right, we're hot mic.
Copy that.
Morning, Houston.
Good morning, Houston.
Good morning, Nick and Sunny. We'll be happy to.
Great to hear from NASA astronauts Nick Hague and Suni Williams for the first time as they have joined our broadcast, as they are inside the crew lock now, wishing us a good morning to the mission control room here in Houston, Texas, in the International Space Station Flight Control Room. And you can see a live shot of that flight control room now, continuing to monitor the progress of the...
Houston, I think you've got Sept 9 and 1.105.
And Butch, confirm step 77 is complete?
That's correct, 76 and 77.
Okay, copy that.
Those relays coming down from these... Those relays coming down from the ground team here inside Mission Control Houston.
Let us know when you're ready for step 82.
Say it again?
It'll happen as part of the leak check in the steps right before.
Oh, yeah. Okay.
Checkouts continue to move along for today's EVA procedures as NASA astronauts Suni Williams and Nick Hague are inside the crew lock, which is just on the other side of that hatch that you see from your field of view. And their support teams of NASA astronaut Butch Wilmore and Don Pettit also on the inside of the equipment lock of the Quest airlock, going through those step-by-step procedures.
79 are complete. You are go with steps 81 and subs.
Hey, here we go. All right, EV2, check. Press pump power is off on the UIA.
Press pump power is off on the UIA.
Try the depress pump enabled LED is on.
Enabled light is on.
Okay, Houston, we're moving to the Q card.
Stand by.
We are now waiting the go, no go from the ground as teams here in Houston as well as up.
Houston, you said stand by for the depress repress Q card, correct?
Yeah, stand by 1. We are checking on the ground that everyone is ready. So stand by just 1 second.
Outstanding. We're standing by.
And there you heard it right there. Teams up in the International Space Station as well as teams on the ground going through those final checks before giving the go, no go for today's EVA procedures.
Wait, regarding the handover in the crew lock, depress, repress Q card, the handover from you to Jesse here, we were thinking that we can hand over after or at the initial tether config for egress. That is step 11 in the Q card.
That's what we have marked. We'll be ready to hand over at step 11. Thanks.
Okay, copy that. Thank you. And Airlock Houston, so we see both EV1 and EV2 HECAs on ON. We would like them to be off OFF at this time.
One's off.
Who's off?
Both heckers are off.
Copy all.
This is Mission Control Houston, where you see NASA Flight Director Nicole McElroy on the near side of your screen, alongside with Flight Director Elias Miramo for support, going through those final checks for today's EVA procedures. Capcom Aki Hoshide, JAXA astronaut, alongside with NASA astronaut Jessica Whitner, taking over the communications roles for both Capcom and Spacewalk communicator. Whitner will be the one communicating with Suni Williams and Nick Hague through today's procedures. And right now, awaiting those final couple of checklists to come in.
Oh, yeah, plenty of room. How about you?
Yep, doing good.
You can even move over a little bit forward.
No, you're going to be throwing switches, so I'm just back here. So I've got plenty of room to grab my workstation and do what I need to do.
Yep.
And that was Nick Hague and Suni Williams talking together. They're right now inside the crew lock, awaiting for the official go to start depressurization of the crew lock to match the pressure that is inside to that of the vacuum of space. And we'll be hearing a lot from them as they work through today's planned spacewalk procedures.
Just looking out the window, trying to look out the window.
Shockingly enough, I think we caught up to the timeline, and I think we're just waiting on everything to get squared away down there, so maybe a few more minutes.
Okay, Butch. Thank you. You guys did an awesome job getting this stuff in here.
Yep.
Airlock Houston, we are go for the crew lock depress repress cue card.
Okay, pick it up, step 1 of the depress cue card. All right, EV2 on the UIA. Switch the depress pump power to on. We're going to wait 10 seconds.
Okay, on the UIA, just depress pump power coming on.
Okay, there's 10 seconds. Depress pump manual ISO valve to open.
Depress pump manual ISO valve coming to open. It
So
is
alert tone.
open.
Monitor your suit P gauge less than 5.5.
Copy.
If it goes above 5.5 EV2, you'll stop the depress.
Roger.
So there you heard the go and command given to begin the depress of the crew lock, and we will monitor that as the air pressure inside the crew lock will then be lowered to match that of what will be the vacuum of space for NASA astronauts Nick Hague and Suni Williams.
I'm sorry, 6.0, my bad.
I'm right at about 5 for my 2C. What are you at?
4.5.
CRB?
Yeah, and it's climbing a little bit.
Yep.
Crew lock's at 12 psi.
Roger.
And I've got my PPRV.
Yeah, mine's honking at me.
Yep.
Ten point eight psi.
Copy.
The same.
And you hear the call outs of communication between Mission Control Houston, the NASA astronauts you are seeing here on screen, and Butch Wilmore and Don Pettit, and the astronauts inside the crew lock for today's EVA, and Suni Williams and Nick Hague, monitoring as the PSI, the pressure inside the crew lock, continues to decrease to slowly match that of the vacuum of space.
Ten psi.
Roger. Sure.
Depressurization of the crew lock continuing to fall to match that of the vacuum of space, being monitored by Don Pettit and Butch Wilmore inside the International Space Station as their spacewalk support systems for Nick Hague and Suni Williams. As we continue to monitor as it slowly sinks down to match that, and hearing the call outs and different milestones of that PSI falling.
Passing 9 psi.
One copy.
Copy.
And that call out was to confirm 9 PSI inside the crew lock. And you hear the communication on the ground of the current PSI measurements and the countdown for approximately how long until they will reach 5 PSI inside the crew lock. That is where Nick Hague and Suni Williams currently reside in their suits in preparation for today's EVA. And they will pause there for additional checks and checkouts of their suit and systems.
All right, 7 PSI. 2 reminders, again, expect an alert tone at 6. And for EV2, when we get to 5, we're going to take the depress pump mine ISO to closed. I'll call you.
Okay, EV2 copies.
And 1 copy.
This is Mission Control Houston as we continue to follow along the depressurization of the crew lock inside the Quest airlock of the International Space Station, where through that hatchway is NASA astronauts Suni Williams and Nick Hague, getting ready to venture out into the vacuum of space after a few more systems checks along the way. Butch Wilmore and Don Pettit, their support systems you see inside the equipment lock, monitoring the falling PSI as it approaches 5 psi, which they will pause for final communications and systems checks before eventually giving the go to continue, in which Nick and Suni would then open up the hatch, switch over to internal battery power, which would officially mark the start of today's EVA.
Six for EV2.
In for 1.
You're going to call me?
I'm going to call you.
Okay. I'll wait for your go. At point 1.
All right, that's close enough. EV2, depress pump mine ISO to closed.
Press pump manual isolation valve is closed.
Okay, for both of you, status until leak check question mark is displayed. Hold it for 2 seconds and follow the displayed instructions.
1 copy.
2 copies.
And there you heard confirmation, a good hold at 5 psi, and that's where astronauts Nick Hague and Suni Williams will undergo those final checks of communications and systems, relay that with their support team, which you see in Butch Wilmore and Don Pettit inside the equipment lock. And there you can see the flag on the arm of one of the astronauts just inside of that crew lock. Once that is completed, the PSI will continue to climb downwards and match that of the vacuum of space, in which the astronauts inside in Hague and Williams will be given the green light to switch to internal battery power, thus officially starting today's EVA.
Complete on 1.
We check complete on 2.
Outstanding. So check your O2 actuators in EVA.
Okay.
One's an EVA.
An EVA, let me just double check. EVA. It's say it, right?
It'll say it.
Yep. So EV2 is an EVA.
Outstanding. We're up step 7. If you're following along there, Sonny. Depress pump man ISO valve to open. Expect an alert tone.
Okay, depress pump manual isolation valve coming to open.
We're also going to open the emergency MPEV. Monitor your suit P gauge stays less than 5.5. If it goes above, stop the depress.
One copy.
Two copies.
All right, Sonny, heads up, not now, but when we get to 2 PSI, you will close the depress pump man ISO valve.
Okay.
And I'll give you a call.
Roger that.
And there you hear the confirmation, and the depressurization of the crew lock continues as NASA astronauts Suni Williams and Nick Hague continue to make their checks and systems checkouts before switching to internal battery power and eventually opening up the hatch to begin their EVA and today's planned tasks for spacewalk number 91.
Four PSI.
Roger.
Three PSI.
NASA astronauts Butch Wilmore and Don Pettit in your field of view, continuing to monitor the falling PSI inside the crew lock, which is just behind them, which currently holds NASA astronauts Suni Williams and Nick Hague in preparation for today's EVA.
I see 2.
Okay, we're close enough. DV2, depress pump mine ISO to closed.
Press pump manual ISO valve is closed.
You can also switch the depress pump power to off.
Depress pump power is coming off.
Nice work. I'm going to hand it over to ground IV. You got it, ground.
Thank you, guys.
Thanks, Butch. Thanks, Don.
Good morning, Nick and Sunny. Happy to be working with you guys today. When you are ready, we can report your
Good
initial
morning, Jeff.
tether config.
Okay, Sonny, I can see.
You got it?
Yeah. So let me, move your leg just a touch.
Yep.
Okay. So you can see Sunny's. It'll be her right D-ring extender. She's got a waist tether, gate closed, slider lock, black on black. And then the large hook is to the airlock D-ring extender, gate closed, slider lock, black on black. Then,
What are you looking for?
your tether pack. That's me. Tether pack is down by here. By your shoulder a little bit. There we go. Okay.
Are you starting from me?
Yep.
There.
So I can see on her left D-ring extender, you've got red hook, gate closed, slider lock, black on black. Goes to the red reel. Red reel is unlocked. The green hook is on the red reel in the unlocked position. The yellow hook goes to the green reel. Gate closed, slider lock, black on black. Green reel is an unlock. Her anchor hook is gate closed, slider lock, black on black. My waist tether on my right side. My waist tether, large hook, gate closed, slider lock, black on black. That goes to my right D-ring extender, gate closed, slider lock, black on black. My tether anchor, or red hook, is on that same D-ring extender, gate closed, slider lock, black on black. To my red reel is unlocked. Green hook is on my red reel in the unlock. The yellow hook from the red reel goes to my green reel, gate closed, slider lock, black on black. And my anchor hook is on the workstation. I think we've got one more waist tether on you, Sonny, to confirm.
Waist tether is connected to my D-ring on my left side, and then it is connected to my mini workstation on the T-bar.
Yeah, and I can see that it is gate closed, slider lock, black on black to your D-ring.
Okay.
Any go backs, Jeff?
All right, Nick, Sunny, nope, that's a good config for both crew. When the crew lock DPDT is about 0, you can expect an alert tone, and we're going to hold here till we see less than 0.5 PSI.
Okay, copy that.
Okay.
And a wonderful rundown there from NASA astronauts Nick Hague and Suni Williams as they went through their initial tether configurations to connect themselves to the International Space Station for safety to make sure that they remain attached to the orbiting laboratory. And they will continue to await the final calls before switching to battery power and then eventually making that progress to open up the hatch and begin today's EVA activities. And when they switch to battery power, that'll officially mark the start of today's EVA.
second on the gauge. I'm joking.
Hey guys, we're about 5 minutes out from 0.5 psi.
Roger.
Copy.
This is Mission Control Houston as we continue to monitor the decompression of the crew lock inside the Quest airlock of the International Space Station, in which NASA astronauts Nick Hague and Suni Williams, EV1 and EV2 respectively, titled for today's U.S. spacewalk. They're continuing to monitor the progress and that decompression, or pressurization, pardon me, of the crew lock, which is just beyond that hatch, in which you are seeing the support crew inside the space station, NASA astronauts Butch Wilmore and Don Pettit, in the equipment lock continuing to clean up as they await the final instructions from the team here in Mission Control Houston. Depressurization of the crew lock continuing to be monitored from the teams here on the ground in Mission Control Houston in the International Space Station Flight Control Room. And they officially handed over communications of today's U.S. EVA spacewalkers Nick Hague and Suni Williams to Jessica Whitner, and we will be hearing call-outs and instructions from her and her team on the ground here in Houston as they prepare for today's EVA activities.
The gauge say? I switched over. B.
Yeah, it's 0.7.
Pass.
Whole exponential decay thing.
Yep. Exactly.
This is Mission Control.
Enough room? Do you want me to move anywhere?
We're good for now.
Okay.
We'll need to jostle around to get the SCUs off.
Yep.
Then once we're in a good position, I'll get stuff moved so I can stop the hatch.
This is Mission Control Houston, where you are hearing conversations between NASA astronaut Suni Williams and Nick Hague as they continue to monitor, as well as teams inside the International Space Station and on the ground here in the International Space Station Flight Control Room in Houston, as the PSI continues to fall inside the crew lock of the Quest airlock of the International Space Station, as both Williams and Hague prepare for today's planned EVA and upcoming tasks.
Right at 0.5 on the gauge.
I go.
For Houston, go.
And copy that, Nick. We're seeing a 0.55 still, so we're waiting about another minute or so.
Got it, Jess. Thanks.
All right, that man, is it daylight or nighttime out there?
I go with daylight. I didn't cheat. Guess I could have looked at the timeline.
I didn't either. I'll say nighttime. One of us will be right.
Like that approach.
And there you heard the call out that the teams on the ground are go for a hatch open.
All right, Nick, Suni. Nick, if you can verify again, the EV hatch gauge is less than 0.6 psi. You have a go to open and stow the hatch.
Okay, copy that. I see 5. Opening the hatch.
I got it. Oh, you won.
Daylight.
Daylight.
Nice. Back up a little bit.
Yep.
And there you see the exterior of the Quest airlock, in which the hatch will shortly be opened up by NASA astronauts Nick Hague and Suni Williams as they get ready to begin today's EVA.
And for the crew, we're going to go ahead and hold here for a couple minutes while we look at data.
Copy.
Holding.
RGFM is closed.
And copy that, Butch.
And this is Mission Control Houston as we continue to follow along the progress of what will soon be the hatch opening of the crew lock, a part of the Quest airlock on the International Space Station, in which inside that crew lock, Nick Hague and Suni Williams prepare for U.S. EVA spacewalk number 91 and today's planned tasks.